Hey everybody. What frustrates me the most about modern mainstream media is how they report the news. It appears as though they either knowingly report falsehoods or they purposefully leave out important, relevant facts. Some mainstream media outlets morph the news from the actual facts to their preferred narrative. Take BuzzFeed, for example. They have a $400 million agreement with NBC. So even after BuzzFeed's fake Covcath story was debunked, NBC remained silent. If NBC was committed to fact-based reporting, they should either close BuzzFeed down completely or go in and clean house and remove every fraudulent journalist from the building. But they won't, and because of that, it's clear that they're complicit in BuzzFeed's fake news. When these news outlets promote a demonstratively false narrative, they prove that they're pushing propaganda, not reporting fact-based news. Which brings us to the topic of this video. The news surrounding Nancy Pelosi and the President of the United States State of the Union address. As you are about to see, the mainstream media is not only leaving out huge parts of this story, but they are purposefully misleading the American public. Any outlet that does this should have their press credentials and licensing revoked. The American people deserve better. With that out of the way, let's get started. According to CNN Politics, President Donald Trump declared his annual State of the Union address canceled on Wednesday after House Speaker Nancy Pelosi sent word she would bar him from delivering the speech in the House chamber while parts of the government remain shut down. The State of the Union speech has been canceled by Nancy Pelosi because she doesn't want to hear the truth. She doesn't want the American public to hear what's going on, and she's afraid of the truth, Trump said from the cabinet room after Pelosi made her intentions known in a letter. Trump bemoaned the decision, calling it a great blotch to the incredible country we love. It's a great, great, horrible mark, Trump said. I am writing to inform you that the House of Representatives will not consider a concurrent resolution authorizing the President's State of the Union address in the House chamber until the government has opened, Pelosi wrote. Now, here's the part that frustrates me about the mainstream media. It's this sentence right here. As Speaker, it's Pelosi's prerogative to invite the President to deliver the annual address. Both the House and the Senate would need to pass resolutions convening a joint session of Congress before the President's appearance. Now, this is actually not true, but I want you to pay attention to that piece right there. This is why CNN is called fake news. This is a lie, and I'm about to get to why in just a moment. Pelosi initially wrote Trump last week to inform him the speech should be delayed or delivered in writing, since the law enforcement agencies tasked with preventing the Capitol during the event are affected by the shutdown, which kind of surprises me because it's a federal shutdown. It's not a state shutdown. So, I mean, I don't know, maybe federal dollars go to fund the Capitol, but I don't know. This is something that I'm ignorant of. Maybe this is something that I can do some homework on at some point. I've been extremely busy. So I don't know. Maybe the city police department in the Capitol is funded by federal dollars, but who knows? The Department of Homeland Security later cast those concerns aside, saying its agents and officers had been preparing for months to protect the venue and would be ready, shut down or not. Trump sought to drive that point on Wednesday. I just got back from Iraq. I was very safe in Iraq. I felt very safe. We had great, great security, he said. If we can handle Iraq, we can handle the middle of Washington in a very, very spectacular building in a beautiful room that we should be in. And that's where it's been for a very long time. And Trump is absolutely correct. Now, let's move forward and talk about the State of the Union address and its significance. According to Wikipedia, the State of the Union address, sometimes abbreviated to SOTU, is an annual message delivered by the President of the United States to a joint session of the United States Congress at the beginning of each calendar year in office. The message typically includes a budget request and an economic report of the nation, and also allows the president to propose a legislative agenda and national priorities. The address fulfills the requirement in Article 2, Section 3 of the U.S. Constitution for the president to periodically give to Congress information of the State of the Union and recommend to their consideration such measures as he shall judge necessary and expedient. During most of the country's first century, the president primarily only submitted a written report to Congress. After 1913, Woodrow Wilson, the 28th U.S. president, began the regular practice of delivering the address to Congress in person as a way to rally support for the president's agenda. With the advent of radio and television, the address is now broadcast live across the country on many networks. So is this true? Like, is this a constitutional requirement? I mean, because it really sounds like, as we talk about this, it really sounds like Nancy Pelosi is trying to prevent the president of the United States from carrying out his constitutional duty and mandate. Well, let's look at the Constitution and see what it says. Here is a portion of the Constitution of the United States provided by Cornell Law School. He, meaning the President of the United States, shall from time to time give to the Congress information of the state of the Union, and recommend to their consideration such measures as he shall judge necessary and expedient. He may, on extraordinary occasions, convene both houses. Now, that last piece is extremely important. Let me say it again. He may, on extraordinary occasions, convene both houses. What's that mean? That means that he can actually ignore the Speaker of the House, Pelosi, and he can convene both houses without her permission. He doesn't need her permission to speak before both houses of Congress. They don't need to pass a resolution. That's all a lie. And it is not Pelosi's prerogative, like CNN says. It is not her prerogative to deny the President of the United States. And there's more justification for that in a few minutes. I'll provide that for you. But CNN lied. The United States President can convene both houses at will. In fact, according to Politico, on 27 occasions, presidents have called both houses into session to deal with a crisis. The most recent of these special sessions, and the first one since 1856, met at the behest of President Harry S. Truman on this day in 1948. And this article was written on the 26th of July, 2007. So it's clear there is a lot of historical precedent for the President of the United States to convene both houses of Congress without Pelosi's approval. But clearly, her narcissism prevents her from seeing this. Now, let's switch gears a little bit. This is the oath of office that every Speaker of the House takes when they enter the House. And this is a constitutional requirement. Article 6 of the U.S. Constitution requires that members of the U.S. Congress be bound by oath or affirmation to support the Constitution. Members-elect of the U.S. House of Representatives typically take the oath of office on the House floor on the first day of a new Congress, immediately after the Speaker of the House has been elected and sworn in. The Speaker administers this oath. I, name of member, do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, that I take this obligation freely, without any mental reservation or dementia or purpose of evasion, and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties of the office on which I am about to enter, so help me God. Now, that brings us to the Office of Congressional Ethics. According to the Office of Congressional Ethics, government ethics rules exist to promote and enforce the proper conduct of public officials and to maintain public confidence in government. All three branches of the federal government have offices that oversee the ethical conduct of elected officials, officers, and employees. In Congress, the U.S. Senate and the House of Representatives have separate ethics rules and enforcement mechanisms. In the House, the Committee on Ethics and the Office of Congressional Ethics have responsibility regarding alleged ethical violations by House members, officers, and employees. The OCE is a nonpartisan, independent entity established by the House in 2008 to conduct initial reviews of allegations of misconduct and, when warranted, refer matters to the Committee on Ethics, which has exclusive jurisdiction to find violations and impose punishment. The Committee on Ethics can also initiate its own investigation without a referral from OCE. That brings us to the Committee on Ethics Code of Official Conduct. These are the rules of the House of Representatives. Official Code of Conduct. There is hereby established by and for the House the following Code of Conduct to be known as the Code of Official Conduct. And the first two are the only relevant ones for our conversation. A member, delegate, resident commissioner, officer, or employee of the House shall behave at all times in a manner that shall reflect credibly on the House. A member, delegate, resident commissioner, officer, or employee of the House shall adhere to the spirit and the letter of the rules of the House and to the rules of duly constituted committees thereof. So, in other words, not only do members of the House of Representatives have to stick to the letter of the rules and the letter of the Constitution, they are bound by the spirit of the Constitution and the spirit of the ethics rules as well. These are very clear and explicit rules of the House Committee on Ethics. Now, let's move on. This is the House Ethics Manual. This is a 456-page document. Now, this one was done for the 110th Congress, and pretty much most of it's boilerplate documentation. So even though the current Congress may publish its own House Ethics Manual, much of it will be the same. So for purposes of our conversation, we're going to use this one because this one was the one I was able to find. Violations of ethical standards. Violations of ethical standards may lead to various penalties. The U.S. Constitution authorizes each House of Congress to punish its members for disorderly behavior and, with the concurrence of 2/3, to expel a member. The House may also punish a member by censure, reprimand, condemnation, reduction of seniority, fine, or other sanction determined to be appropriate. I want you to think about that for a moment, and then let's move on. According to page 357 of the PDF document, now let me see what page this is, 355 in the document itself. This is the Code of Ethics for Government Service. Any person in government service should put loyalty to the highest moral principles and to country above loyalty to government persons, party, or department, or federal criminal foreigners. Uphold the Constitution, laws, and legal regulations of the United States and of all governments therein, and never be a party to their invasion. Now, according to page 24 of the PDF, conduct reflecting credibly on the House. A member, delegate, resident commissioner, officer, or employee of the House shall conduct himself at all times in a manner that shall reflect credibly on the House. Now, this is important, okay? Because they've actually disciplined people for conduct very similar to what Nancy Pelosi has done. Now, let me show you. To date, the committee or the House has invoked Rule 23, Clause 1, in investigating or disciplining members for. And then, of course, they start here, but I'm going to scroll down. You'll probably have a jump cut here shortly. Okay, so that should be the jump cut. And here's the quote I wanted to cite. Making statements that impugn the reputation of the House. Now, that's important because I believe Pelosi has done this. Now, the other piece here, too, is if you scroll down just a little bit farther, the spirit and the letter of the rules. A member, delegate, resident commissioner, officer, or employee of the House shall adhere to the spirit and the letter of the rules of the House and to the rules of duly constituted committees thereof. So in other words, again, Nancy Pelosi is not only supposed to adhere to the rules that are on paper, she is supposed to adhere to the spirit of the rules. This is extremely important because even if she doesn't violate the letter of the law, if she violates the spirit of the law that governs her membership, she can still be disciplined for it. Think about that for a moment. Then we switch over to this document right here. Constitution Jefferson's Manual, Rules of the House of Representatives. Now, this is for the 112th Congress, but again, a lot of these rules are very much boilerplate language. Let's go ahead and check those out just briefly. By the way, this is a 1,460-page document. Okay, Rule 4, the Hall of the House. Now, according to Rule 2A on page 379 of this document, only the following persons shall be admitted to the Hall of the House or the rooms leading thereto. Number 1, members of Congress. Number 2, the delegates and the resident commissioner. And number 3, the president and the vice president of the United States. Now, remember that because that's rule number 3. Let's scroll down a little bit farther. The Speaker may not entertain a unanimous consent request or a motion to suspend this clause or clauses 1, 3, 4, or 5. By the way, Rule 4 is the Supreme Court Justices of the United States. Rule 3, again, is the President and the Vice President of the United States. So, according to these rules, Speaker Pelosi can't even entertain a motion or a consent request to bar or suspend these rules to prevent the President of the United States from speaking before a joint session of Congress. Think about that and let's move on. According to Minority Leader McCarthy, Pelosi is almost acting like a dictator. No, she is. She's absolutely acting like a dictator. But according to this guy, he's just like, this is politics. So he's trying to soften his political language. He still wants to call her a dictator. So I'll do it for you there, bro. Pelosi's acting like a dictator. Absolutely. Congratulations. Pelosi is a feminist from San Francisco located in dog shitistan. So what would you expect from somebody from such a degenerate third world state? Okay. Dog shitistan has the worst income inequality in the United States. Her city is covered in human defecation. It's so bad that they actually have to hire a human defecation cleanup crew. Okay. This is the state that had a hepatitis outbreak. It had a flu outbreak. Both of these outbreaks killed people. This is the state that decriminalized knowingly giving people HIV. Okay? That's how bad dog shitistan is. Oh, and by the way, they also decriminalized teen prostitution, which arresting teen prostitutes was the number one way law enforcement uses to get children off the streets and to get them the help they need. It is also the number one method that law enforcement uses to identify, locate, stop, and arrest human traffickers of teen prostitutes. Because what they do is they browbeat the teen prostitute arrested. She rolls over on everybody. They protect her and they protect everybody else. But of course, dog shitistan doesn't want that because they are completely degenerate. This is where Nancy Pelosi comes from. And California values, those are the values that Pelosi wants to give the rest of the country. And she wants it to be just as unethical, just as degenerate as the state of California. Think about that for a moment and take all the time you need. Now, let's move on and let's start talking about solutions. According to Wikipedia, she can be expelled from Congress. Presently, the disciplinary process begins when a resolution to expel or censure a member is referred to the appropriate committee. In the House, this is the Committee on Standards of Official Conduct, House Ethics Committee. The committee may then ask other representatives to come forward with complaints about the member under consideration or may initiate an investigation into the member's actions. Sometimes members may refer a resolution calling for an investigation into a particular member or a matter that may lead to the recommendation of expulsion or censure. Let's put this all together and let's talk about this, how it relates to Nancy Pelosi. Pelosi told the President of the United States he could not speak in the House because of security concerns. This was untrue and debunked by both the Secret Service and the Department of Homeland Security. It appears Pelosi lied to the President of the United States. Pelosi then told the President she would not allow him to speak in the House because of the government shutdown. When Pelosi said this, she herself proved her initial reason for disallowing the President of the United States to speak at the House was not true. I believe that lying to the President of the United States violates the ethical code of conduct of the House of Representatives Rule 1. A member of the House shall behave at all times in a manner that shall reflect credibly of the House. Pelosi, by blocking the President of the United States from delivering his constitutionally mandated report on the State of the Union before the joint session of both houses, violates over 100 years of congressional tradition and interferes with the President's ability to carry out his constitutional mandate to report to Congress under Article 2, Section 3. Pelosi's efforts to prevent the President of the United States from performing his constitutional duty violates her oath of office under Article 6 of the U.S. Constitution of the United States, which states in pertinent part, I do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, that I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties of the office on which I am about to enter, so help me God. And finally, I also believe Pelosi's conduct also violates the following rules of congressional ethics for government service. Rule 1, put loyalty to the highest moral principles and to country above loyalty to government, persons, party, or department. Rule 2, uphold the Constitution laws, and legal regulations of the United States and of all governments therein, and never be a party to their evasion. Engage in no business with government, either directly or indirectly, which is inconsistent with the conscientious performance of his or her governmental duties. And of course, we're not going to actually discuss that next section here. I just want to see if you're paying attention. So as you can see, in black and white, the United States president has the constitutional authority to convene both houses of Congress for a State of the Union address or any other reason. And no demonstratively dishonest, un-American feminist bigot like Nancy Pelosi has the power to stop him, even if her dementia and narcissism prevent her from understanding these verifiable facts. Also, and this is an important side note, Pelosi is currently under attack from her own party. The news isn't reporting this either. There's a media blackout. The Democratic Party, as I speak, is being attacked from within. Communist entryists like Ocasio-Cortez and her allies are executing a Marxist entryist strategy to take over the Democratic Party from within, and Pelosi and her allies are too old and too senile to see this communist takeover for what it is. In their geriatric dementia, they misconstrue this takeover as populism instead of the communism that it is. This isn't the first time communist agitators have done this. They did this in Russia as well, almost 100 years ago. The same Marxist strategy, just a different century. Now, let's get back to the subject at hand. Pelosi provably lied to the President of the United States, disgracing herself and the office of the Speaker of the House. This violates both congressional ethics and her congressional oath of office. Further, Pelosi has prioritized the welfare of federal criminal foreigners before her duty to uphold the United States Constitution and the welfare of the American people. Let's call this for what it is. It's sedition. Now, I know that we're the little people. What can we do about this? Really, we can do a lot. You, the viewer, can share this video with members of the House of Representatives and other elected government officials. Share this video far and wide to patriots so they understand the gravity of Pelosi's actions. Repeatedly tell elected officials to file an ethics complaint against Pelosi and start expulsion proceedings to remove her from the House. Make no mistake, when Pelosi acted to prevent the lawfully elected President of the United States from carrying out his constitutional duty and deliver his State of the Union address, she became an enemy of the American people and of the United States Constitution. Her seditious acts created a constitutional crisis and are possibly violations of federal laws and are also potentially federal crimes. Pelosi should be put under immediate investigation and held accountable for her unethical behavior and the violations of her oath of office. During this investigation, Pelosi should be immediately suspended as Speaker of the House and removed from any committee she's assigned to prevent her from further sabotaging our government and the Constitution on which it stands. Finally, to all the tradcucks, pseudo-alpha bros, and other ignorant idiots who mistakenly think that MGTOW are cowards and have no skin in the game, if that were the case, keyboard commando armchair tradcucks wouldn't need a MGTOW like me to educate them or to defend our country and our way of life. One can be MGTOW and a patriot at the same time. They're not mutually exclusive. If you don't believe me, look up Warrior Monk U.S. General Mattis and see for yourself. Now, if you're a member of one of these groups I just called out, maybe you should rethink your prejudice. MGTOW are not your enemy. Traitors to our Constitution like Pelosi are, and as Americans, we're in this fight together. The bright line in the sand is, and always was, the Constitution of the United States of America. If patriotic Americans don't act soon and defend the United States and the Constitution on which it stands, we won't have a country to defend. I'm just one of many MGTOW patriots, and my name is DDJ, and this has been your red pill dose of misandry today.